Well, good afternoon. This is Elliot Kallen of Prosperity Financial Group. I am the CEO here, and this is part of Meet the Expert on our 401k program, where we bring you as fiduciary advisors information on how to have the most effective and the most competitive 401k for you, your company, and your participants, the employees. So today we're talking with Chris McDavid. Chris is the Senior VP in the West Coast area. He's been calling on me for a very long time from John Hancock, works with their platform. They are a top 5 platform in the country, very large. Everybody here knows about John Hancock and knows the name of the company. And we're gonna ask him a few questions and find out what's happening in the marketplace for the 401k, as well as we'll finish up with why you should consider looking at the John Hancock platform. Chris, are you ready?
Yeah, thank you, Elliot, and thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. So Chris, we're in the middle of a pandemic here with COVID-19. There's a lockdown in Contra Costa County where we're located. We feel like we're in jail. Administrators and trustees are not able to go to work. They're not really thinking about their 401k. There are layoffs everywhere, but we're all basically going to start going back to work in the next few weeks. So major changes have happened with the CARES Act and the Act of 2019, the Secure Act. From your point of view, what should trustees be aware of with the new laws that would help their plan be competitive and do the best job for their participants?
Well, you're right, Elliot. A lot has changed in quite a short period of time. Prior to this pandemic, you had plan sponsors, you had businesses that would consider putting a 401k or not putting a 401k, and that was based on their fear of maybe not having to match or not match or things of that nature, being flexibility. And participants that would participate or not participate based on having access to their money and worrying about maybe an emergency or cash flow issues. What I think the pandemic has proved with the CARES Act is that all companies really should feel safe putting in 401ks, and participants should feel safe participating in them because they're really truly flexible. The CARES Act was simple. It gave participants access to their money before they're 59 and a half if they need it and if they have an emergency related to the pandemic. What the CARES Act also did was made the 401k administrators, gave them more flexibility with regards to maybe changing a match or something of that nature. So really the biggest takeaway that we've had so far is that, again, 401ks are still a good thing, and they're even more flexible now during times of distress than they really were before. Companies can adjust their design, okay, to incorporate lack of cash flow or anything of that nature. And participants can get access to their money if they really need it, significantly easier than they could before. Again, before you had to be 59 and a half or take a loan. That was changed really overnight, Elliot, and it had a pretty dramatic effect with regards to the positivity and the flexibility of the plans for the participants.
Great. Is there any particular part of the Secure Act of 2019 or the CARES Act of 2020 that you think trustees, administrators should focus on that would make the plan better?
It's a good question. I would say yes. So first of all, most of our clients have adopted some portion of allowing participants access to their money if they need it. They might not they might not take it all the way up to the $100,000 mark. We saw some people maybe cap it at lower amounts, but just offering it has made people feel more comfortable, Elliot. The interesting thing about it is that the take rate has been very low. So HR departments and companies have got really good publicity by welcoming the ability for participants to take their money if they need it. But in reality, people have found other ways to use their money and really change their investments. So we've also watched have people moved out of the market and in the market. They've gone from more fixed income into the investments. So there's confidence. So I would say that companies have to, I would say that it's a positive thing if they make it available. People won't necessarily need to take advantage of it. That's what I'd say is the biggest difference we've seen.
Great, Chris. Thank you. Second question for you, or third question now. You know that we are fiduciary advisors. So we take on some responsibility for finding the best funds and fees and platforms for our clients. So what best practices should administrators and trustees be looking at doing to keep their plans most competitive?
Well, I'll tell you, Elliot, what's an interesting. I've been doing this for a little over 20 years, and this is one of a couple different dramatic events that have happened to our economy during my time of doing this. And the biggest thing that comes to the top is the role of the advisor. Elliot, hopefully you'll be happy to hear this. Advisors like yourself are very popular and you do a really good job. But when the markets are going straight up, no matter what anyone does, there is a tendency for people to forget why they need an advisor. And sometimes they'll gravitate towards an advisorless plan or maybe some type of robo option, and they don't seem to be hurt or changed from it. Well, during times like this, they're instantly reminded that they do need an advisor and an expert to recommend whether they should have access to money or adjust their plans. So with that said, congratulations. People are happily reminded of why they chose you in the first place, not an 800 number or an email address. And the things that they should be asking an expert like you is to benchmark their plan every 2 years. The Department of Labor and ERISA have always recommended this, but per my earlier comment, when the market's just going straight up, Elliot, and nothing's going wrong, people forget about that fact. So they should be asking about that. They should be asking someone like yourself to help them form 401k committees. A lot of times people assume that formalized 401k committees are for fancy billion-dollar plans, when in reality, they're just a good, safe practice, even on a very small plan. And they can be somewhat formal in nature, and someone like yourself could help create that committee, document it, and have some fiduciary training. And then there's a couple policies that they can expect from a really good advisor like you. An investment policy statement that garnishes the investments, an education policy. Let's talk about what type of education we're going to give our employees on an annual basis. A fee policy. Let's talk about how the fees are going to be paid and by whom, and are they transparent? And then last but not least, Elliot, cybersecurity. We've always been concerned about cybersecurity. It's always been a big deal in our industry, but since the pandemic has started, the amount of breach attempts and cybersecurity thefts have gone through the roof. So that's the last portion they should ask someone that's an expert like you to help them understand and document.
Great, Chris. On the annual review, clients aren't always interested in doing that. It seems like a waste of trustees' time, administrators' time, but we force that to happen as a fiduciary advisor, because we want to review the costs that you just mentioned. Investment costs, we want to review making changes to investments, platform fees, making sure the platform is competitive, maybe going back and renegotiating with a platform like yourself to say, hey, the assets have increased by 30%. What can you do from your end, and so forth? How important are these meetings, and what should the administrator and trustee be asking of us that would be in the participant's best interest?
It's a good question. They're really critical, and they don't have to be 3 days long. They don't have to be 3 hours long, but they have to take place and they have to be documented. The first thing that they should be asking someone like yourself for is kind of these overarching policies that really guides all the work that has been done during the year. So again, those policy statements that I mentioned, the investment policy statement, education policy, fee policy, and cybersecurity, those will be looked at during a review. But most importantly, again, why it's so important, Elliot, is because cost and fees are important. We know that. That has a dramatic effect on the ability for the participants to actually retire. But the Department of Labor and ERISA doesn't demand that you have the cheapest plan or the plan with the best performing investments. What it actually says is that there needs to be, they need to be reasonable in comparison to other plans similar to them, that there needs to be a documented and repeatable process. So the confusion sometimes happens, Elliot, if they're not asking an advisor like you during a plan review why our cost is this way, our plan is set up this way, is if I had a business that had 15 locations and 3 of them were predominantly in Spanish, that would have an effect on my cost versus my neighbor that has a business at one location and only sends out a video once a year. So the importance of the annual review, Elliot, is to lay out the expectations and what you want. And one's not better than the other, but it needs to be consistent, repeatable, and documented.
Great, Chris. Well, thank you. So you're with John Hancock. They're one of the major players, large platforms in the United States. This is primarily for plans 500,000 to 15, $20 million. That's our market here at Prosperity Financial Group, 20 million. So tell me, why should trustees and administrators consider John Hancock? I'm giving you a few minutes to give a commercial for your company. Why should they consider John Hancock as their primary source for a change?
Well, thank you, Elliot, and I appreciate you using the word change. Change really kind of brings light to maybe some inconsistencies or challenges that other providers or any provider would have at that point. And my answer is pretty simple, and it's based upon a lot of shakeup, not only in our world, but the economy and in the record-keeping business. Plain and simple, John Hancock is the most transparent record keeper with regards to how we line item our fees and any fees being paid by the participants or the business. The second reason is technology. We're the only record keeper that is 100% cloud-based in our machines, Elliot, and that has really helped us during this pandemic. It's allowed us to really pivot and adjust to the CARES Act and the Securities Act on the fly very quickly for you and for our participants. It's also allowed us to maintain our security on the cyber side. It's really allowed us to do that. So by us being a behemoth in technology, that is reason number two, us being cloud-based. The third reason is service. Service is really not looked for or is a big deal when there's not controversy or problems. What we've noticed once again is that when there is challenges, people need real human beings to talk to, not 800 numbers and not chat boxes. We have those as well when it's convenient for those clients. But during this pandemic, we've really measured how much physical service we've been able to provide. Elliot, in my world as a record keeper, to survive this very low margin, very competitive, razor thin environment, a couple things. You're gonna have to own your own record keeping system, which we do. You're going to have millions of participants to spread costs and resources among, and you're going to have thousands and thousands of plans, again, to subsidize that cost structure. During this type of environment, I would be very worried if I were a newer, smaller record keeper that was trying to fight for market share. The environment makes it very, very difficult. So I'm fortunate enough to work for a company that's been doing this since the beginning of time, obviously since the John Hancock signature. We own our own record keeping system. We are the tops in technology, and during this pandemic, we've really exacerbated that time schedule, adding new things. We're still servicing people, and we're here for the long haul, Elliot. We have thousands of plans, and we have millions of participants, and we're not going anywhere. That's why.
Great. I've been speaking with Chris McDavid of John Hancock. So Chris, I want to thank you very much for being part of this, and we'll see you on Meet the Expert again.
Thank you, Elliot, and I wish you and your clients safety. Everyone, please stay safe, stay happy, and we can't wait to see you in physical person again. Thank you.